Get a job. It's what college students worry about upon graduation, and many a parent has said to their child. But in today's world, even job ads and offers can be scams. Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Lisa Oligus. In this edition, warnings and advice from the Better Business Bureau about employment scams. Our expert once again is BBB Regional Director Pamela Hernandez. Thanks for being here again.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's very important information for job hunters. What is an employment scam? What do they look like?
You know, it is anything that you would think of related to a job. It runs the gamut. So it can be anything from someone telling you that your resume isn't the correct format and charging you to get that resume reformatted, to literally the type of work you're doing, a mystery shopping job, a car wrap job, reshipping. That's another one that we see.
So let's explore those two in big ways. Resume formatting. I've never heard of this before. So what is that?
Well, you know, I haven't either until I do what I do, and consumers tell us about, they apply for a job. Typically, it's someone that's reached out to them. I saw your resume, you'd be perfect, or I saw your information, you'd be perfect, but there's something wrong with your resume to go into our applicant tracking system. Most companies use some sort of system to accept those resumes these days. And so they tell the applicant that they need to get it formatted correctly and provide them the name of a service that can do that. Of course, they send their resume off along with their payment information, and they might get something back that looks pretty much like the resume they sent in, but more often than not, they get nothing, plus they've lost money and personal information.
And it does seem like, okay, I can see why there might be some system that needs it, but formatting, it just seems like that may be a little bit of a red flag. So let's talk about the reshipping. What is a reshipping scam?
So reshipping scams can take numerous forms within themselves. It can be anything from someone posing as Amazon. Consumers have reported this to us, that someone says there's a position at Amazon where you will receive a package, inspect it, label it to send on to Amazon, right? Doesn't add up for those of us who know what Amazon is known for, being really efficient in their process. But they are really sending stolen goods or goods purchased with stolen credit cards, and they're getting some unsuspecting job seeker in the middle. It can also be money, reshipping of money, moving of money. So a scammer might set up a fake listing on an online marketplace like Facebook, Craigslist, something like that, putting merchandise out there. Then they hire someone to accept those payments, someone who's in the US where the scammer maybe isn't. The person they hire maybe is close to the geographic area they're putting that ad in. That unsuspecting person, they're just told they have to accept the payment, they can keep part of it, and then send the rest on to some unknown entity.
Wow. So it kind of seems like people who want to work from home could be a target for this, because you're thinking, oh, I can do this job from home, it's easier. Are they kind of a target area? Are they duped very easily because it's like, work from home, this is going to be great?
That is when we looked at data from our last Scam Tracker Risk Report. So every year we do the BBB Scam Tracker Risk Report, where we look at all the data that consumers report to us and look for those trends. And when we looked at employment scam data, which is, by the way, the #2 riskiest for 2024 across all ages, when we looked at that data, one of the common themes was the desire to work from home. Now, whether that's because we got used to that after 2020, we like working from home, or job seekers who are looking for that extra income, that side hustle, that second job that they need, and they need that work from home flexibility, something that they can do on their days off or in the evenings.
Yeah. Well, the BBB shared a person's scam story that you sent to us, and she was asked to buy a phone and send it to them for a software update. So do they do all kinds of things like that, and should that be a red flag, mailing something back?
It absolutely should be. It should be a red flag. If your employer starts asking you to purchase things for your job, or asking you for money to get into that job for training or anything, that's a big red flag. And in this particular example that I shared, it's very common. Someone gets hired for a kind of a basic customer service representative, a hard job, but typically that's kind of an entry-level position. And then the scammer will start saying you need special equipment, you need software, you need various things. We're going to send you a check. Use that
Pay
check.
for your home office.
Pay for your home office, exactly. Pay for that phone that you're going to need for work. But we want you to buy from our vendors. Or you need to send that laptop or phone to our person that will program it with everything you need to do your job. And of course, the other party, whether that's the vendor or the programmer, they're in on the scam. And the check is always fake. So the job seeker is going to be on the hook for that amount when it comes back out of their bank account.
So if you really didn't want a home office, you've got one now.
Maybe.
Paid for, maybe. Oh, well, I guess if you had shopped locally, but if you ordered it from their company, you may not even see it.
Exactly, and that's typically the setup. What they do in these types of scams, they're providing the consumer, the job applicant, with our preferred vendor, right? Here's where we want you to purchase from. They know the software that you need. We've negotiated special rates. There's always a very good reason why you need to shop specifically from this vendor, and it's really just an extension of the scam.
Yeah, you can lose a lot of money that way.
Absolutely. The median loss as of the 2024 data is $1,500, but we often hear $4,000, $5,000, $6,000.
Wow.
Setting up a home office is expensive. So we hear very large amounts that unfortunately then that person is on the hook for.
You bet. So what are some of the most common tactics scammers use to find those victims and then hook them in?
Well, we talked about that work from home. It's those things that people are seeking. We got used to work from home. It became very common. But it's also folks who are looking for a little bit of extra income. So we talked about that. Maybe it's they want a side hustle, something that they can do part-time. Putting things out there on social media. Things that look very easy, maybe from even a reputable company. So it's putting things out there that are easy to access, contacting with great pay, low hours, little experience. It just sounds like this is the perfect fit.
Yeah, and we mentioned that could be a red flag when they ask you to send something. What are some of the other top red flags, like this really needs to be an alert if you get this?
It's the cold call. Really, that's what
get my number.
consumers. Exactly. And I say cold call, it's the text, the email. We think you're perfect for this job with our company. And they're often impersonating, big companies that we recognize, retailers, we mentioned Amazon. They're impersonating those types of companies. We found your resume. You've been recommended to us by recruiters. Great job. We're going to pay you X amount of money. Little skills needed, you set your hours. They send that right there. That's all the classic hallmarks of a job scam. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. And then they want to hire you without any kind of interview, or an interview that's a few questions over a text message. And maybe you can get a job on occasion without an interview. That's generally not the case. So when those things come at you, particularly all at once, big red flag, walk away.
Yeah, I mean, I've even gotten, a lot of folks do put their stuff out there on LinkedIn. It's, oh, hey, this is the new way of trying to get a job. You put yourself up there, you have a profile. And I've even gotten one where it said, we saw your profile, out there. And so you think, well, I did put my profile out there somewhere, because that's what everybody says you're supposed to do.
Yes.
So it doesn't seem that unbelievable that they've seen your profile on some kind of hiring line. How do you know then if they're legit? How do you find out if they're legit? Like, oh, this might be a source that needs company wants you to apply for a job. You've been listed as a general manager, apply for this general manager job. How do you know if that's a legit ad or a legit company?
Well, you bring up a great example. A lot of people are putting open to work on their profile. That's where we connect. That's what LinkedIn is for, those business connections.
Yeah.
So a great way to start vetting when someone reaches out to you, look on LinkedIn. Look at their profile. Look to see what the information is. How long has that profile been in existence? LinkedIn is working very hard. They know these types of things are happening on their platform. So they're trying to catch it just as hard as anyone else. And that's one of the changes that they instituted over the last couple of years is the age of a person's profile. Because that can be a big red flag. All of a sudden you see a brand new profile for somebody who works for this company reaching out to you. Right there, that should make you take pause, right? That there's no information, there's no history, and it's a brand new profile. So simply thinking about that connection point Is that really how they found you? Is this person really who they say they are? Is a great way to start. And if not on LinkedIn, a simple search on a search engine, whatever your favorite search engine is, put in the name of the person in the company they say that they work for.
Yeah.
Does that
And
show
is
up?
there a job that they're really advertising?
Exactly. If it's, we'll go back to Amazon, just because it's a great example.
Big target.
But it's a big target, but Amazon, if they have a job, it's going to be on their website, right? You will be able to find that job out there if it's truly something. And that's the way a lot of companies operate. You're going to be able to find that job, but that big company listed on their website.
So how scammers are now using AI tools. How does that make it even harder to detect that it's fraudulent?
So one of the things, even as early as, or as soon as last year, as recent as last year, telling someone to look for grammatical errors in an offer, making sure you talk to someone. AI tools are cleaning up all those grammatical errors, right? AI tools can write a very convincing sounding text message.
They can, yeah.
But also, they're getting great with video and voice. So you might actually have a video chat with someone that you think is a real individual,
Wow.
but it's not. Or maybe a short snippet. And then they say, I apologize, my connection is bad. That's why we can't continue this on video. So there's just enough to make you think you're talking to that real person to get you to put your guard down just a little bit.
Okay, well, young people are being targeted. We're going to take a break. When we come back, why younger people are more at risk for getting involved in an employment scam.
Two people are searching for jobs online. Both find opportunities they like, and both are eager to apply. But there's a problem. Only one is a real job, and the other is a scam to steal your personal information. So, how can you know which is which? Don't let a dream job turn into a nightmare. Find out how to spot and avoid employment scams at bbb.org/scam studies. That's bbb.org/scam studies.
Most people who have job hunted know it is important to have a resume to show your work history. But here too, scammers are making life difficult. Pamela Hernandez is helping us sort out dangerous employment scams. One deals with resumes that can hit that younger job applicant hard. First off, why are young adults more likely to become involved in employment scams? I mean, is it part of it that they're desperate to earn money for school loans or something like that?
It can be so many things. Anything from the types of jobs. College students are looking for flexible work. They're trying to get around activities, obviously class schedules. And so those flexible jobs, those can sometimes be the ones that are more at risk. So a mystery shopping job, those types of jobs do exist, but scammers will make them sound too good to be true and can often bring in people who are looking for that flexible schedule, right? It can just be the world of work. If we think about how we applied for jobs before 2020 and how we started applying for jobs in 2020 and after, it wasn't uncommon in 2020 and 2021 to never physically be in the same room with the person that hired you. And so not knowing those norms as we kind of get back to our normal routines now, that you should have a face-to-face interview of some sort with someone going into an office at some point. If you're just coming into the job market with all this, it's hard to know what's real and what's not.
Yeah.
It's the entry-level jobs too. Those again tend to be the ones that scammers do the best at throwing out and throwing that information out there. And that's often somebody coming out of college. They're looking for that foot in the door and not knowing how that process works, not knowing what's normal pay for the industry or for that type of job makes them vulnerable to scams.
Yeah. We mentioned the resume, scam, but there are we had a student here who applied for 400 jobs. In my lifetime, I had never applied for that many, but they have these clearinghouses. So are those legit? And they even said you couldn't be fancy with your resume because they said the machines wouldn't read them correctly. Are those part of the problem? Is that there's sort of a uniformity, and are students and young people being misled by the clearinghouse companies who might be reviewing their resumes?
I think it's not so much being misled. You're absolutely right, having a basic format because machines are reading these, they're looking for keywords. It's the lack of communication. You're putting your resume out there. I can't imagine hundreds of jobs applying. I don't even know how you have time to apply for 400 jobs, but a lot of people are they're out there applying for lots and lots of
Well, they
jobs.
send it digitally, so it just goes.
Everything goes digitally. It goes through various portals. Maybe it's not even going directly to the company. Like you said, it's going to some sort of processing company. They're all using software and they're never hearing anything back. So when you do hear something back, you get very excited.
Yeah.
And scammers count on that emotional manipulation. Fear in other types of scams, but certainly that joy that finally someone's reached out to me, finally this is my opportunity, this sounds like a great job, they're great at impersonating well-known companies, so it's easy to get pulled in.
Yeah. Let's talk about other scams for college students. And you mentioned reshipping. Online payments seem to pop up as something. How does that work to become a scam that college students might be involved in?
You know, online payments, it can depend on the type of work. So, for example, a college student reported to us they got an email, what looked to be like a professor from their school, and that does happen. Scammers hack into emails, they impersonate university, school emails. They thought that they were working for a professor, sent a check, asked to purchase Bitcoin and send the receipts.
Oh, wow.
Now, what the details, what kind of experiment, what kind of research, the person didn't share, but they thought it was coming from a legitimate source. They thought they had money in hand with that check, and then purchased that Bitcoin, which of course went to the scammer, and the check was fake and came back out of that student's account.
Wow. So why is it that the median dollar loss by your study is higher for this group, for younger group? I mean, are they just more gullible?
Again, it goes back to the types of scams and maybe not understanding how checks work.
So inexperience can play a role.
It's inexperience. 42% of employment scams, scams in general that target this age group involve a check. Not understanding when you deposit a check, because let's be honest, how much do we use checks anymore?
Most people don't even have checkbooks.
Right.
It's all Venmo
Right.
or online.
Exactly. And so they deposit the check and the money shows up in the account. And so if you're not familiar with how that works, you're like, great, the check has cleared, the money is there, I can do this, everything is fine. But unfortunately, that's not how our banking system works. And it can be weeks before a bank determines that check is fake. That money is long gone to whoever's involved in that scam. So some of that's just simply not understanding how the financial system, those personal finance basics around checks can be a factor.
Yeah. I mean, you'd think it would be personal finance 101. But unfortunately, a lot of students don't get that. And I do see young people, I'm on it now too, they will share money via Venmo for, we're talking a slice of pizza.
Yeah.
They don't carry cash. So online seems to be a really good source of making them a target. So there is data online that shows that employment scams that target young adults involve the fake checks. Social media platforms are also used, and messaging. So is it more toward younger people in that because they're always on those mediums?
That can certainly be a factor. And we're not just talking about social media like LinkedIn. You know, we're not talking about necessarily job-focused things. It can be a Facebook ad. It can be someone has hacked your friend's Facebook and you get something that looks like it's from your friend about a great job opportunity. You know, we had a report within our local area that happened to someone.
Wow.
The friend introduced them to the job. It was a reshipping scam type of situation. They thought everything was going great, but it turned out that their friend's account had been hacked, and nobody knew until the second person started questioning the situation.
And in those reshipping scams, because there is sort of criminal activity going on, are they then possibly consider being part of criminal activity, and does it make it harder for them to get out of that with law enforcement?
It can. You know, if you're receiving stolen goods, you're purchasing something with stolen credit card information, it is certainly a possibility that now you can be in criminal trouble. So it's not just you losing money, it's not just you losing information, but there could be legal ramifications for that.
So what are some things parents and, schools and teachers do to help educate our younger generation about safety, money safety?
Well, going back to that personal finance, right? I'm not sure how much of that gets taught anymore. I'm not sure what kind of education is out there, but really just making sure young people understand how banking systems work. How do checks clear? You know, we've had reports of scammers holding up a check on a screen and telling the young person to take a picture, because that's how we deposit checks now, right? to do it without even a physical check present.
Oh my gosh.
So it's really that education piece around it. And then making sure as people are getting work ready to talk around about the norms around this is how a job offer process should work. These are the steps that you would normally take when you're hired.
Are more employers, I mean, should they be more engaged in saying to the public, this is how we hire?
Absolutely.
I mean, what's their role?
And I'm starting to see more of that. A few years ago, it was not uncommon to go to a company's site and not see their jobs listed. And so not only are we seeing more listed on the company's website, but also tips about we will never do this. If someone says this, it is a scam. We know people have been impersonating our company. So for companies to be more proactive about what their process is, who will be contacting them is so important, and putting those jobs out on their website. You know, a few years ago when I was looking for a job, before I got this one, I found it refreshing because you don't get a lot of feedback back. A company sent an email immediately, says, thank you for applying. Here's exactly how our process works.
Oh, that's good.
Here's who's going to contact you. If this happens, then this happens. And to have that clear communication was rare and delightful.
Yes. How dangerous, especially with young people, is an impulsive buy? I mean, so much is on your phone, your credit card's there, it's very easy to go, this looks like a good deal, I'm gonna go with it. Is that part of the problem? Is that technology's made it so easy?
Oh, absolutely. It absolutely is, because again, we go back to LinkedIn. You can just click to quick apply, right? That's just part of the process. And so in normalizing that, we don't always step back and do the research. Who is this person that I'm allegedly talking to? What is this company? Maybe I've never heard of them. Taking a few minutes and going and just doing a little research about the company. So it's always a best practice when someone reaches out to you out of the blue to take a step back and verify who you're talking to and all the details.
Research, good buzzword. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, Pamela shares ways to protect yourself from employment scams. Don't go away. Well, everyone gets excited about good deals and amazing offers, but even with jobs, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Pamela Hernandez is back with us to talk about ways to protect yourself from employment scams. So we mentioned some red flags. What are the most important red flags you should look for when you're applying for a job, particularly online?
So if you get the offer that you didn't apply for, right there, big red flag number one, particularly if you're already hired. You know, that is time and time again, those scam text messages, I get them, you get them, emails, we saw your resume and you're hired. Right there, time out, step away. If you're tempted, does it sound too good to be true? Are they offering high pay, very few hours, you set your schedule, no experience necessary? Those are all big red flags of some sort of scam, whether they're trying to get your information at the hiring process or whether they're trying to get you involved in some sort of illegal activity. Step back, don't click the link, don't contact them in any way.
And are there things on an application that some companies won't ask that you should maybe go, oh wait, that's not typically on an application? I mean, Social Security numbers, you really don't want to give that. I mean, maybe once you're hired, but of course they might say you're hired. So what would be some things, it's like, oh, that seems weird to have that on an application?
Well, on an application, certainly Social Security number, bank account information. We hear from consumers all the time that they say they've been immediately hired, or maybe a very short interview, they've been hired, and immediately asking for that information. We need to get it quickly. We need to do a quick background check. We need to get your information to set up your direct deposit. That is not how that process is going to work. There are verification steps, and certainly depending on the job, they may need to do a background check. But they're going to get that information up front when you're talking to that HR person. They're going to get that in a secure way. There are ways that businesses have to verify the person that's working for them. There is a process for that. So it's not going to be you taking a picture on your phone and sending a copy of your driver's license. If someone's asking for that along with a resume and application, again, a big red flag. They're after your information, not you as an employee.
So how can you, if you give the offer, how do you verify that that's a legitimate offer from that company? I mean, should you just call them? I mean,
No, absolutely. Call them. That you absolutely can. Call, go to the website you know to be true, not what was in the email, not what was in a text message. Find that contact information. That's why it's so critical for companies to put that information on their website. Who is it that you actually need to be talking to in HR or whatever company they've contracted with, and just pick up the phone and call them and verify that information. That's some of the best advice. Is this really a job you're offering?
So you went ahead and did it. You gave them all that information on a job app. What do you do if you realize I've gotten involved in an employment scam? What do you do immediately? What's the first thing to do to get yourself sort of out of it or protected?
Well, you've got to protect yourself and your money first. So if you have handed over your social security number, your driver's license, bank account information, contact your bank immediately. You're probably going to need to change bank account information. So get that squared away as soon as possible. You may need to call Social Security or contact Social Security online so there can be alert on there that your Social Security number has been compromised.
Because could someone then set up an account in your name and then start doing things under your Social Security number?
They absolutely could. So that's why a credit freeze is another next important step. If they've got personal information, they've got your Social Security number, they can absolutely start taking out credit in your name. So you want to put that freeze on so that nobody can get to that information or take out credit in your name.
Because otherwise you're going to be a victim of identity theft besides the employment scam.
Exactly. And then you want to report to law enforcement. You know, a lot of people don't think about filing a police report, but the law enforcement folks that I've talked to, they want to know about it. They want your police report. They want you to give them that information. They're getting better, at least I live in Springfield, in the area that I live, in the counties surrounding, and I think Joplin is the same way. They're putting that information out on their social media. This is what's happening. This is what's going on. So they're trying to do their part.
And you're helping other people if you share that information, because it means you're going to be targeting people in the region.
Absolutely. And same thing about reporting it to BBB Scam Tracker. When you share that information with us, that's what we use to educate the community. So that helps keep other people safe. And we have the Scam Survival Toolkit. In case you've forgotten all of the steps that I've talked about, it lays out a personal plan. You've got a checklist. You've got exactly where to contact some of these agencies. You have the information in one place. So
all right, so where do they find that? It's all online.
All online, bbb.org/scam tracker.
All right, great information. Pamela Hernandez, thanks for being here again.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. That wraps up this edition of Newsmakers. Be alert and scam aware as you search for jobs. Thanks to our guests from the BBB, and thank you for watching Newsmakers. Good night.